The film begins in the city of Rio de Janeiro in the 1960s. We see Rocket playing soccer with his friends. He's the goalkeeper. He remembers the first goal scored against him. A teammate in the same team told him, "You're useless. You don't know how to do anything." But Rocket kept his head and told his teammate not to worry. It's just a game. Then went to fetch the ball. Two kids grabbed it from him and started playing with it. Rocket joined the argument, but the others kept playing and ignored him. At that moment, a bigger boy from among them, called Shocky, took the ball and began playing with it. This boy was notoriously ugly and belonged to a gang called Tandertero. No one dared ask him for the ball because he was a criminal and might attack them. Then Shocky's friends asked him to give the ball back and get ready because they were going to steal a gas station car. Shocky threw the ball high into the air, took out his gun and fired at it. From there, we discover that the Tandertero gang was one of the most notorious gangs in the city. There were 5 main members, the older ones, Shocky, Lildas, and Joss, plus 2 younger boys, Shaggy and Benny. We learn that Joss is Rocket's older brother. When the gas truck arrived in the neighborhood, Joss stepped in front of it, grabbed the driver and pulled him out. The gang climbed onto the truck and began smashing the gas pumps and threatening the neighborhood people. They even took the driver's money. But the police arrived, so the gang fled and split into groups. They pretended to be late for a soccer match so the police wouldn't suspect them. After the police left, they took the money they'd taken from the driver and handed it out to the kids who had been playing soccer. Joss gave the money to Rocket and told him to give it to their father, but to do it without telling their father it had come from the gang, because their father was an honest man who knew about the gang and would refuse stolen money for his son. Rocket lived in a neighborhood called the City of God, an area known as a refuge for the homeless and the poor. At one period, floods had made many people homeless, so they settled in this City of God to live. The neighborhood was extremely poor, with no running water, no electricity. Residents had to go to nearby districts to fetch water. One night, the Tandertero gang decided to rob a hotel in the city. The gang's planner was Lildas. Although he was the youngest, he was the smartest and always the one who made the plans. When they reached the hotel, Shocky told Lildas to stay outside and keep the pistol ready. In case the police came, Lildas should fire into the air as a signal. Lildas had wanted to take part in the robbery itself, but the older members mocked him and laughed at him because he was small and they feared for his safety. They entered the hotel pretending to be workers so they could access the guests' rooms. Once inside, they brandished their weapons, threatened people, and told them that if they didn't cooperate and hand over their money, they would be killed. They managed to rob everyone in the hotel. After the robbery, when they heard police sirens and police cars arrive, they realized Lildas had not warned them. He had been worried about them, and they fled the hotel at reckless speed until they crashed into a casino. The police entered and found everyone in the casino brutally murdered. There was no one there to explain what had happened. At that moment, a watchman saw them driving into the casino and reported them to the police. He also saw 2 of them run off to hide in the forest. He asked his friends to follow and watch them. The 2 climbed a tree to hide from the watchman. One of them escaped and entered a house where he found a woman and her daughter living. He liked the daughter and asked if he could stay with them until morning because the police were after him. The woman agreed. Later, the police searched the forest and found a poor, confused boy who looked like he might be from the gang. They beat him. After things calmed down a bit, Joss returned to the house to find his father giving him some chores and scolding him. "From now on you will work for me and you must forget the gang completely." Because of the gang's killings, the police decided to keep a close watch on City of God and started arresting young men who hadn't done anything, sending them to prison. The police believed this would reduce murders and thefts, since most of the city's residents were homeless. Meanwhile, the relationship between Shocky and Bernice, the girl who had been hiding the boys, developed and they announced their relationship. But Bernice's one condition for carrying on with her life was that he leave the gang and find a real job. She couldn't bear the thought of him getting arrested. Later we see Joss working in his father's fish shop when a pretty customer comes to buy fish. He wanted to talk to her but didn't know she was the wife of a man nicknamed Shorty. When Shorty noticed Joss talking to his wife, he reported Joss to the police. When the police arrived, Joss barely managed to escape. They couldn't find anyone else but Rocket, Joss's little brother, so they arrested Rocket and demanded he take them to the house. When they searched the house they couldn't find any trace of Joss. By coincidence, Joss had run into Lildas and the young Shaggy and they had a lot of money. Joss demanded the money from them. When they refused, he beat them and took the money by force. He told Benny to tell Shaggy that the man called Shorty had started working with the police and warned him to be careful. At that moment Joss decided he would leave City of God and never return. That same day, the man nicknamed Shorty, whose wife had been talking with Joss, was arrested because he had fought Joss after seeing his wife talk with him. Shorty decided to bury her alive, but neighbors heard the noise and called the police, who came and arrested him. News reached Shockey that the police were hunting him everywhere, so he and his fiancée decided to flee City of God. They left the house with their suitcases. Shockey stopped a man with his car and got in. The man drew a weapon and ordered Shockey's fiancée to get into the passenger seat. Behind them, the important thing was that the driver was going fast with the gun pointed at his head, but suddenly the car broke down. Shockey got out to push it, and right there the police, who had been monitoring the area, saw him and opened fire, killing him instantly. His fiancée, watching everything from inside the car, burst into tears, terrified, and decided to escape and leave the city. When Shockey lay dead on the ground, a crowd gathered around him. A journalist with a camera started questioning Shockey's grandmother. Rocket stood watching the journalist, fascinated. It was the first time he had ever seen a camera, and he wished he could have one of his own. 20 years later, theft and murder in the City of God had only increased. By then, Rocket had finally managed to save some money and buy the camera he had dreamed of for so long. He was in love with a pretty girl named Angelica and loved photographing her, but she paid no attention to him and couldn't stand him, since she was already involved with another boy. Rocket worked as Angelica's personal photographer, along with her group called the Groovy Gang. They paid him well for his pictures. One day, Angelica confided that she wanted to try smoking a joint. Since Rocket loved her so much, he went to a local dealer he knew to get some weed for her. At that very moment, Lil Daz, now grown, about 18 years old, appeared with his gang. He had become very dangerous by then, and he had changed his name to Lil Zay. His gang began robbing house after house in the neighborhood until nearly the entire area was looted. The only house left was that of Rocket's dealer friend. From that moment, Lil Zay decided to take over the dealer's house, seize his stash, and run the drug trade himself. Since it was extremely profitable, almost everyone in the City of God, young and old, even some police, was involved in the drug business. Lil Zay resolved to wipe out every dealer in the city, even the small ones, and even corrupt police, so he would become the sole drug lord and control the money. Lil Zay forced people to work for him producing drugs, because he couldn't do it all alone. Even Rocket's dealer friend agreed to work with him and use his house as a drug lab. From then on, Lil Zay became the richest young man in the City of God. Later, Angelica broke up with her boyfriend Chiagu because he had become addicted to drugs. When Rocket heard the news, he realized this was his one chance to get close to her and confess his love. Chiagu, meanwhile, went to buy drugs from Benny, Lil Zay's right-hand man. Benny noticed that Chiagu was dressed in stylish clothes, and since Benny was also secretly attracted to Angelica, he set a condition. He would only sell Chiagu drugs if Chiagu bought him the same fancy clothes. Chiagu did so, buying Benny an entire wardrobe. Benny then agreed to sell him drugs, refusing even to take money. He was satisfied with the clothes. Soon, Benny changed his style completely, started dressing fashionably, and began spending time with Angelica. They would go out together, party in casinos, dance, and talk. Rocket, unaware, didn't realize Benny was getting close to Angelica and was about to steal her away. At this time, Rocket was working long hours in a shop for very little pay. He felt it was unfair. Lil Zay made piles of money from drug dealing, while he, working honestly, earned nothing. One day, a group of kids came into the shop and stole food and sweets. When Rocket tried to stop them, they ran away. The shop owner accused Rocket of being in on it, refused to hear his explanation, fired him, and even withheld his pay. Feeling crushed by injustice, Rocket saw that the city was drowning in corruption, theft, and murder. He decided to rebel and become like the others. He went home, took his brother's gun, and went out with a friend. On a bus, Rocket decided to rob the conductor at gunpoint. But when he looked closely, he realized the man was their neighbor, someone who lived nearby. Rocket changed his mind, stepped off the bus furious at himself. He couldn't even bring himself to threaten anyone, even though the whole city stole and attacked daily without consequence. Instead, he and his friend went to a pastry shop for dinner. At that moment, Rocket planned to rob the cashier. Gun in hand, he was ready, but then he saw that the cashier was a beautiful young girl, innocent and undeserving of harm. He felt pity, lowered the gun, abandoned the idea, and left with his friend. As they exited the shop, they met a man in trouble who was asking for directions to a place called Bara. He offered them a ride if they'd show him the way. Rocket thought about finally robbing this man. Meanwhile, Benny and Angelica were dancing in a casino when suddenly a gunman named Blackie stormed in, aimed at Benny, and shot him dead on the spot. Blackie had done it out of hatred for Lil Zay, who worked with a rival gang. Afterward, Blackie went to Carrot, the leader of his gang, asking for protection. Afraid of Lil Zay's revenge, but Carrot grew angry, blaming Blackie for bringing trouble to him, and decided to kill him too. Carrot went to one of his men, Nado, and handed him a gun. After his brother was killed, Nad took revenge. He tracked down Lil Zay, killed many of his men, but Lil Zay managed to escape. Later, Nad joined Carrot's gang, and together they started robbing banks. They became the richest gang in the city, bought tons of weapons, and declared war on Lil Zay's crew. Soon, City of God turned into a battlefield between Carrot's gang and Lil Zay's gang. During this time, Rocket was working odd jobs, trying to stay away from crime, but Nad was eventually caught and interviewed on TV, where he talked about the war and how he went from a normal hardworking kid to a notorious criminal. Lil Zay, jealous that Nad was now famous, wanted the same. He hired Rocket to take pictures of him, hoping to spread them everywhere. Rocket accepted the money but secretly feared Lil Zay's reaction. Rocket took the film to a newspaper office, but a journalist overheard and stole the photos, publishing them on the front page. Rocket was shocked when he saw his pictures in the paper, terrified that Lil Zay would come after him. But instead, the paper offered him a job as a photojournalist, covering the violence in City of God. Rocket was excited yet scared, knowing his life was on the line. Meanwhile, Lil Zay made a deal with an arms dealer named Charlie but refused to pay him. He distributed weapons to kids in the neighborhood, promising them chicken if they helped him catch Rocket. Soon, armed children were running through the streets, chasing a chicken that stopped right in front of Rocket and his friend. Suddenly, Lil Zay appeared with his gang, pointing guns at him. Just as things were about to turn deadly, the police showed up and ordered Lil Zay to surrender. But he refused, raising his weapon instead. A brutal shootout erupted. In the chaos, Lil Zay managed to kill Nad, but then the police arrested him. Still, they released him after taking a bribe. All of this happened in front of Rocket, who captured it all on film. Later, the same kids Lil Zay had armed turned on him, gunning him down in the street. Rocket photographed everything and published it in the paper. The story made him famous, and he became one of the most well-known journalists in City of God, and that's how the film ends.